Hello, this is Richard DeFord from Doc Pens here, and I thought it would be, since it's so cold outside, at this time where I live, it's about 3 degrees, and everything is shut down, and so I thought it'd be a good time to capitalize on and make a video about something that I've heard a lot of folks ask over the last many months on fountain pen forums and things like that, and then also my own customers. So, and that is about cartridge refills versus converter refills, and what my thoughts are on them and all of that. So let's talk first about cartridge refills. You can buy cartridges a number of different sizes, and when I say sizes, I don't just mean the length of the cartridge, but I'm going to use this one as an example. So this is a standard international size cartridge. What's really important is the end here. This is where the cartridge plugs into your nib unit. And your nib unit requires a certain cartridge. So if you're going to use cartridges, it's important that you get the appropriate cartridge for your pen. I don't personally typically use cartridges, and there's a reason for that. I like inks. I never thought I would. When I started this journey of fountain pens, black and blue was all I felt like I needed. And somewhere along the lines, I picked up a bottle of ink. Actually, I know where it was. I bought an estate where somebody had a whole bunch of pens and inks available, and that kind of opened my realm to the idea of inking with different color inks than just blue and black. So you can get cartridges of various colors, but not nearly as many options in the cartridges as what you can get with the bottled ink that you refill yourself. But what I'm going to do tonight is I have a pen. This is a Waterman pen. It's an iridescent pen. It's a beautiful pen. It's not particularly expensive. I think this is around $35 or so, if I remember. It's been a while since I bought it, but I don't have a cartridge that fits this, or a converter that fits this. So I have just been running a couple of cartridges that came with this pen, and I have a lot of pens that are inked. I rotate them out on a regular basis, and every Tuesday night I sit down and I write with all of them to keep them flowing. And I noticed this past week that this cartridge that goes in there is empty. And of course it doesn't write if it doesn't have ink. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to show you what you can do if you don't have a converter for your pen, but you have cartridges. Say you bought a pen and it didn't come with any converter. And by the way, a converter is something like this. I'll show you here before I do this. This is a converter. The converters come in many different sizes and all of that. Here is another converter, different sizes. And when I say size, I mean you could see I think you can see it there, that this hole is much larger than this hole. This is for a Lamy pen. This is probably for like a Jinhao or other pen, but you can see that the ends are different. And so some pens come with these. Most pens do if they take a cartridge or converter. Sometimes you don't get the converter for some reason. This is what I like to use in my pens primarily because it's reusable. It's got it's like a syringe, and that's how you refill your pen. You stick that down in a bottle of ink with the nib unit, and it's really easy. But this pen I don't have a converter for. I just have the cartridge, and it's empty. So what do we do? First off, I'll tell you, I have already flushed this out. You can see there's a little residual ink there, but I've flushed it out as near as I can. And I'm going to use a similar ink to this, so it's not that big a deal that it's perfectly clear. If you're going to a different color ink, especially if it's a wildly different color ink, like a yellow and you had black in it or something, you'll definitely want to make sure you get all of these residuals out. But for what I'm going to do, it's not that big a deal. You can refill this cartridge. So say you don't want to go buy new cartridges, or it's 3 days out and you've got a writing project you're working on right now and you're empty. I'm going to show you what you can do to fill this with bottled ink. And so it's very easy to do. I don't think it's as easy as using a converter, but it is easy. So I'm going to just dry the end of this off. after I've pulled the cartridge out. And just like video games in the old days, you know, and somewhat still today, but you have a cartridge that plugs into a console. We'll think of that way with this as well. But there's no moving mechanism on this for you to draw ink into it. So what do? Well, I'm going to show you. There are a couple of different syringe units. Now, this is just a standard medical type syringe, and it comes with a needle. These are available on Amazon, and all you do is, or other pen manufacturers too, I want to get that in there, you just twist that on and it goes on just like a medical needle. There's another one that's like this. It literally is a converter. It has a push button end instead of a twist end, but it is a converter. In fact, it can even be used as a converter if your nib unit will take the size of opening there. But then along with it, they also sell a needle that has an insert point that will interface with your converter. And but it's not quite as secure, I don't think. This one you actually screw in. You can see it's got threads that you actually screw that in. This one doesn't have threads, it just pokes in. Not quite as secure, I don't think. So, but what I'm going to do, I have my bottled ink, and I've got a lot of bottles. In fact, if you sat next to me, I think you'd see probably 45 or 50 bottles of ink in my tub that's next to me. But I like this Visconti. It's probably, if not my favorite blue, one of my favorite blue inks. And I'm gonna, since this is an iridescent blue pen, I try to put ink in it in the various pens that I have that match the color of the pen. That way I don't have to figure out what color is that, because in my mind I'll forget it. So all I'm going to do, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to try to get this up where you can see it. I'm just going to stick this down, and I don't have to stick it down nearly as far because the opening to this needle is right about here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this down into the bottle, and I'm just going to draw it up just like you would blood. Just going to pull it up. All right, you see that? Put this up a little bit. I'm going to dry the end of it off because I don't want it dripping on me. All right, I've got ink in there. I flushed this really well in the sink, knowing that I was going to do this video. Normally it wouldn't be as clean as it is. It does take some work to get this flushed out. And you can even use a syringe to do that, although I did not in this case. I'm just going to put the tip of the needle down inside the end of the cartridge, if my cat will leave me alone. And I'm just going to squeeze this into it. You can see it filling up. I'm going to leave just a little bit there at the end. I'm not going to fill it so that it's going to spill on me. I'm going to squirt the remainder back into the bottle so I don't lose any ink. And then I'm going to wash this syringe out in the sink here in a minute. And then I'm going to find the nib unit that I took apart. It rolled away. I'm just going to put this cartridge into the nib unit, and it's there. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on the bottle as quickly as I can, because I will spill it or the cat will jump up here or whatever. And then I'm just going to reassemble the pen. Actually, before I do that, I want to write, and let me tell you why. As in my refill video that you may have seen, if not, go look out on the channel. One of the things that I explain about when you pull up your ink with a converter, you are sticking the nib unit down into the bottle and you're pulling the ink up into the converter. But when you're using a cartridge, you don't do that. All the ink is in the cartridge and you're plugging it into the pen. The problem is that leaves a space from the bottom of the cartridge to the end of the nib where you write. So somehow you've got to get the ink up to here before it will write. And so what that requires you to do is to gently squeeze this. And I actually sometimes have to use my teeth because I don't have a lot of hand strength. But this is a longer cartridge than most. I'll give you an example here where that other standard cartridge that I showed you And this Waterman cartridge, you can see it's quite a bit longer. And because it's longer, it's a little more pliable in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze this until I see a drop. See the drop there at the end of the nib? See if I can turn it where you can see it. All right, see that drop? And then when I stop squeezing, it's going to pull the drop back in. But what that's going to do is it's going to prime it for you. And then I'm just going to put the barrel, well, Murphy's Law, I'm probably going to put it all back together, and I didn't squeeze it hard enough. So I'm just going to try to write something with it. Yep, it is writing already, so that primed it. So I'm just going to put the barrel back on. And I'm going to post the cap gently, because this does not have a cap band. I try to always remind people that if you have a cap that does not have a cap band that is metal, be careful when you post it, because you're putting this in there and it can blow your cap out. I've had that happen before with an Asvine pin that I used. All right, so now I'm just going to pull this down here and let you see, maybe. And it is writing fine. So that is how you go about refilling a cartridge. You'll want to buy one of these syringe kits. There's several different ones. These are two that I have, and I like the one that the needle screws onto the syringe better. They're only like $5, $10. They're not much at all. And you can reuse these forever. I'll go back to the sink and I will flush the ink out of it and put it back in the bag for my toolkit, and it'll be ready to go. You can reuse one cartridge forever, so long as your priming of it and your flushing it doesn't cause a crack or a break, because it's plastic, and as you continue to squeeze that to flush it out, eventually it will crack. But otherwise, you can reuse a cartridge with any color ink that you have an ink bottle for. So that's all I have for you tonight. I hope this was informative to you. Have a great night.